The Tao of Self-Confidence, episode 870. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I am so honored to have this woman as a guest. She is just amazing. She's been a pillar for the AAPI community. She is the chairwoman of the board for Piermont Bank, and I'm super excited to have her on today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Julia Gouw. Julia, how are you today? So honored to have you here. How are you doing? Maybe you can share a little bit about you and what you do.
Hi, Sheena. Thank you for having me. And, my name is Julia Gouw. To give you a background, I grew up in Indonesia and I was born in, 1959. So at the time, the world was so much different than it is now. And when I was a teenager, ever since I was very young, my dream was to come to United States to go to college. And fortunately, my dad really encouraged the kids, especially the daughters, to get education. And I just want to share too, part of the reason is that when I was growing up, I have an aunt that was physically abused by the husband, and she tolerated it. So my dad, being a parent that loved the kids, told us, the girls, is that do not ever let anybody to abuse you like that. And the reason that she cannot get divorced is because she cannot make a living. So it is very, very important for you girls to go to college so that you can make, your own living, that you don't have to be dependent on men. Up to now, I'm still very, very grateful because my dad, with his foresight and his willingness, to think very far for his daughter. And, I really am so grateful. Without his encouragement, his, helping us to make sure that we get a college education, I wouldn't have what I have now. So after I graduated from high school, in Indonesia, I came to United States. I went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I was so shocked how cold it was in the month of January when I came. And because of that, I tried to graduate as fast as I could and then moved to Los Angeles. And I've lived here, ever since.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because especially in Asia, domestic violence is very prevalent. It's not talked about enough. It's a big taboo. And till this day, some cultures, some Asian cultures, or most Asian cultures favor men over women. And this leaves women out because then, if they don't have the education, if they don't have financial independence, then they're stuck with situations that you mentioned, what happened to your aunt. And this happens more often than we realize. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And Julia, what's your favorite self-confidence quote?
I found this really, a quote by Michelle Obama that says that your success will be determined by your own confidence and fortitude. I thought that was really, a great quote. So I wanted to share that quote with your audience.
I love that quote. And it's so true, right? Whatever confidence we have in ourselves, if we don't have that confidence, we're not going to go out there and do the things, right? Even if it's scary, even if it's uncomfortable. I mean, there's days where I want to hide from the world, but I realize I have to do this, not just for myself, but for Asian women out there and beyond, and our community, to show them what's possible. If we want the representation that we want, it really has to start with ourselves. And seeing you as a great example, just paving the way for everybody, I realize I'm not the only one who's doing this. We're all doing this collectively to make the world a better place. So I really love that quote that you mentioned. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
To me, self-confidence is about your attitude, about your abilities and skills. And when you have self-confidence, you're aware of your strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes weaknesses that are very strong, you want to improve on it. But then most likely the best strategy is to maximize your strength and minimize your weaknesses to achieve, what you are trying to achieve. So to me, I think self-confidence is just so important, because when you have the self-confidence, you can take the risk and seize opportunities, things that you may not think that, you can do with the self-confidence. Of course, you're not going to be like something that, somebody that really do a very impossible things. For example, I'm not good in sports. So if, like my goal is to become an Olympian, that's not just self-confidence. That's probably, not going to work. However, I think in your career, in your work, having self-confidence allow you to take the opportunity because, sometimes there is probably the difference. Like many people told me, like men have more confidence in their ability compared to women. So as a result, a lot of men, they would, like seek, a position where they may be more like 50%, 75% qualified. Like women, will only seek that position if they are 100% or 125% qualified. And because of that, they may not really stretch themselves because of the lack of confidence. They don't go after goals that are, very high. It can be achieved. But the good thing about having self-confidence is if you go for it and you fail to achieve that, you can feel kind to yourself and move on and learn the lesson instead of having like continually being so harsh on yourself by being so disappointed or embarrassed. That's another thing. I think that for Asian women, especially, sometimes they are afraid to fail because they would feel embarrassed that they would lose face if they fail, as opposed to, hey, there's nothing wrong. You go after something, it doesn't work the way you want, or you fail to achieve your goal, but it's nothing to be embarrassed about, because when you are embarrassed and you feel that you are ashamed or lose face, it takes a lot of energy. Like it's very negative, and it takes a lot of the energy out of you to do something positive.
I love that definition. It's so true. As women, we face a huge confidence gap from men. Like you mentioned, men will be like 30% ready when they go after a promotion. But women, even if they're 110%, something still holds us back, right? And it's really how we perceive ourselves. And if we applied the same way men did things, just imagine how much we can accomplish. I understand as women, we get a lot of double standards, but it's up to us to push through that so that one day those double standards don't exist anymore. So I really love that you mentioned that. And Julia, what was your life like before you discovered self-confidence?
During the early parts of my career, especially, I worked at the accounting firm that is now KPMG. It was Pitt Mollick at the time. And, in accounting firm, they keep giving you assignment that you have not done before. So I used to be so fearful for all these assignments. Like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I don't know. I've never done this. I don't know how to do that. But I think the process of being forced to do it, because if you want to keep your job, you just have to do the assignment, whether, you know how to do it or not, or, you have never, most of the time you have never done it before. But, I think the experience of not knowing what to do, and then you do what it takes, find somebody who knows, or, look at prior year's work paper or whatever that you have to do. But what is very interesting is a lot of time, things always went well. And there were a lot of deadlines that look so impossible, but somehow it always get done. And because of that process, it did give me a lot of confidence. Okay, you just take whatever assignment they give you and do your best, find a way, be resourceful, not just relying on yourself. And that's what I learned the most, is that instead of just researching everything, by yourself, the easier way and the better way is to find out who knows, who are the expert in that field or, situation, and then ask them, because a lot of people are very generous with their knowledge. And, I used to go when I was, in the accounting firm, would go to the partners or senior managers that are expert, whether it's SEC filing or this accounting issues, and they would love to tell you what they know. And by doing that, it really speed up, your knowledge. After that, you can, find additional information. But some people I know, they never look for answers from other people. So instead, they spend a lot of time researching themselves. And usually, to me, that's not as effective or efficient as getting, like an answer. And some people don't want to ask because they don't want to show that they don't know. So I think that it's all intertwined with self-confidence. When you have self-confidence, you're not worried that people think you don't know. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And I usually, would start with, oh, you're an expert in this SEC filing, can I love to share what they know with you. So that's the reason why I think like the journey, the process and the successes that you made all built up to having the self-confidence. And also, but I did spend in my younger days a lot of like reading self-improvement books, as well as, well, we didn't have your book back then, but, whatever books that I can find, and I even took like Dale Carnegie training in person back then, which I found very, very helpful. And that is, again, like how to increase your self-confidence and all the self-improvement training. And I found like all those things are very useful to a point that, after a while, once I get the confidence that whatever opportunity that I got, I seize the opportunity, and that I know that it's possible to achieve, what you want to achieve.
Thanks for sharing that. And I know sometimes as women, if we don't know anything, our confidence level goes down, right? And I love that you mentioned, we just figure things out along the way. And if we fail at something, it's just a result. We know what the result is, and then we move on. And asking for help is something that is not taught in our culture, right? It's seen as a weakness, as a handout, and then we end up delaying our own success because we feel like we have to do everything ourselves, not realizing being able to ask for help is what will jumpstart that, right? And I love that you mentioned seizing the opportunity, because sometimes we're too afraid to do that. I still remember when I was about to write this book, or even thinking about should I or should I not write this book. I asked you about it, right? Like, do you think I should do this? I don't know. It's like me about a leadership book. This is so crazy. And you're like, just do it. I was like, okay. And here we are today, right?
Like you wouldn't have the, best-selling book, right? Yeah, that's the thing. But even if, for example, you did it and it's not like the bestsellers that you wanted, you learn from it. I think that's another thing is that, whatever during my career, whatever I do, I always look back, even if it went well, I would, it says that if I were to do it again, what could I improve on? And also, if things didn't go your way, like what lessons that I learned from that. But the key is that I was never really harsh on myself or feel bad or anything. If it didn't work out well, you just move on and then try something else, go for, other things. So I'm so glad, like that you took it and look at what you have accomplished.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm really grateful for your you're just your advice and just kind of going for it. And that's what sometimes being a leader is just like, you got to go for it and see what happens, right? We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We have to learn to embrace uncertainty because everything's always uncertain anyway. So
It actually is also be resourceful, like, finding instead of, there are some people, like you said, and that's probably lack of self-confidence. You're afraid that people would think that you don't know something. But, there's like, no one knows everything. Whatever new things, why not learn from somebody else? It's so much better than doing it yourself, researching everything yourself, because one person, there's only so much that you can research on your own. Like a lot of things, that are not people's experience, what they learn. For you, for example, people that have published books, they have their strategies or things that they learn from the mistakes. So finding out all that, how to go get what you want, is always better than, well, I'll just research everything myself. I somehow found that people that lack self-confidence tend to really do not want to recognize that there are a lot of other people that know more about certain things than they do, because they just don't want to show to other people that they don't know everything.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I know because since you're able to seize the opportunity at any given moment in your career, I mean, your name 25 most powerful women in banking, which is huge because banking is still a very male dominated industry. And, as an Asian woman, like it's not typical at all. So because you're able to achieve all these amazing things, what's your life been like now?
It's really great because I retired from a full-time job, as president and CEO of East West Bank 7 years ago. And since then, I sit on corporate boards, nonprofit boards, and, for the corporate boards, it keeps me, challenged, with the things that are going on with the business, but I can also devote my time for nonprofits. And I'm really passionate to advance AAPI representation, especially AAPI women, because in everything that I read, as much as people, say, oh, but the AAPI women are highly educated, have college degree compared to the population in general, Americans. However, in every statistics that you read in corporate America, Asian women are the least promotable group to leadership. And even at the, like corporate board representation, Asian women are falling behind ever since, there's a drive to increase female representation on corporate boards from a very low to now like probably 35% in Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. Asian women, has stayed the same, did not really increase substantially. So because of that, I wanted to, whatever I can do to help the AAPI representation. And, and it starts, that's how I got involved in the AAPI in entertainment, only because it is important to do both, as much as to help Asian women in corporate America, but sometimes, they need to see a story, Asian women leadership, on movies or entertainment, TV, so that people can see it. Because without that, that is the problem, because Asian women are not seen as leaders. So the top white men that controls corporate America also do not have the perception that Asian women are leaders. That's the reason why we need to change the story, the narrative, the representation. It is very, very powerful. The more that people can see Asian women taking on leadership roles in movies or TV, that will, give opportunity to be seen as leaders. Otherwise, it is really unfortunate because, Asian women work very hard. They are very technical. They contribute a lot, but they're just not being promoted to the C-suite especially.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's the sole reason why I wrote the book, The Top Self-Confidence, because Catalyst.org mentioned that Asian women in high corporate roles only represented 2.7% in 2021. And then McKinsey had a report late 2022 that mentioned it fell down 80%. So we're like left with next to nothing. And so this is why media representation is important. Sharing our specific stories are so important so we can have role models that people can look up to, especially role models that look like us, because that is so important. So I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing because it's so needed now more than ever. And if our listeners were tuning into your episode and they're in a similar journey to self-confidence, what would be that one tip you would give to them?
My advice is that probably read books like, your books and self, improvement books. And also just do the journey of be kind to yourself. If you're not achieving, what you wanted to do, just don't spend so much negative energy and rehashing constantly, oh, what did I do? What did I say wrong? And do people think that I'm stupid and those kind of things, like that, because it's really not contributing to your success by spending too much time. And, when you build your self-confidence, you will not live needing other people's approval, nor you spend so much time trying to impress people just to impress people. So you would be able to see the situation and I will say that seize opportunity. Don't be afraid. Maybe the simplest way is that seize opportunity. Don't be afraid to fail. And if you fail, just be kind to yourself and move on. I think that if you keep repeating that and, eventually you'll achieve what you are, what you want to achieve, and you'll be more happy and positive, so maybe that would be the easier way, is that just go for it and see what happens. And if it fails, just move on, learn from the lessons, and don't, like spend so much time like, beating yourself up.
I love that. And it's so true. Sometimes we just go out there, take action, get results, and we figure out what works and what doesn't work, and we just course correct along the way. So thank you for that great advice. I definitely use that advice every time you tell me, and it's worked. So thank you so much.
Doesn't it make you feel better? It's like, okay, you go ahead and you want it, like to be a bestseller, right? It's great that you achieve. But even if you don't achieve, you publish a book and next one, you find another self-correct course. Is that how you said? That is very important. I think that sometimes, people are so hung up with their ideas instead of self-correcting, like along the way, they wanted to prove that their idea is the best idea. And that's like being flexible is part of the self-confidence, right? Because you allow yourself, oh, maybe my idea, maybe I need to change it to get to like from A to B because, that is not the road. I think that it all somehow, a lot of these things, it tied into self-confidence. You're able to say, okay, my original idea is not the best idea. So I need to self-correct the path, the course. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. And if our listeners wanted to get to know more about you and the work that you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Oh, like I'm on LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn, Julia Gouw, or Instagram. And feel free to contact me if, like anybody want to connect with me. Oh, Sheena, I have, like a poem that I really like that. This is like, I found it in the calendar, like written by Rebecca Barlow Jordan. So if I need to put, her name, that's her name. It's titled Believe in the Impossible. It is not how much you accomplish in life that really counts, but how much you give to others. It is not how high you build your dreams that make a difference, but how high your faith can climb. It is not how many goals you reach, but how many lives you touch. It is not who you know that matters, but who you are inside. Believe in the impossible, hold tight to the incredible, and live each day to its fullest potential. You can make a difference in your world. And I thought, I've read this like probably 10, 15 years ago. And every time I read that, it's still very meaningful to me. So I like to share with people that wanted to hear it.
Thank you so much for that great poem. It's a great way to end this interview. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Julia, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Julia's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I just want to thank Julia again for taking the time to share her story and wisdom with us on self-confidence. So Julia, thank you again for being here today.
Thank you, Sheena.
Not a problem. It's such an honor to have you on. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. You can now purchase The Tao of Self-Confidence, a guide to moving beyond trauma and awakening the leader within on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Walmart, Indigo, and other major book retailers. Get your copy today.